American Chemistry Council recently lobbied the U.S. government to use an upcoming U.S.-Kenya free trade agreement to expand the plastics industry's footprint across Africa.
Greenpeace Africa's senior political advisor has warned that such a deal will impact negatively on Kenya's environment.
This deal will have dire consequences in terms of the environmental pollution because plastics have been touted as major polluters of our water bodies, the rivers, the oceans. And this is something that Kenyans have rejected.
Hello, I am Sheila Nelima.
And I'm Mubarak Kenya.
Welcome to this edition of Africa Today, which is focusing on plans by the United States oil companies to impose plastic products on Kenya. Will this East African country cave in to American pressure?
And in the second part of our program, we are highlighting on the opening of the Permanent Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area.
Speaking during the inauguration in Accra, Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo reminded African countries that the world is watching to see if the continent's free trade area will succeed.
The world is watching to see whether the Secretariat will indeed provide the springboard for Africa's economic integration and rapid growth. And I'm confident.
We also have our weekly update on a variety of news and events from all corners of Africa.
Last but not least, we shall also have a look at your social media comments. So please do stay tuned till the end of our show.
U.S. dumping plastics in Africa. The American Chemistry Council, an influential lobby group representing major United States oil and chemical companies, including Exxon, DuPont and Dow, has been pushing President Donald Trump to take advantage of a future U.S.-Kenya trade agreement to expand the sale of American plastics across Africa. This lobby group claims the report is inaccurate, while the Kenyan Trade Minister Betty Maina says the U.S. has yet to table the request. Kenya, which hosts the United Nations Environment Program, has one of the world's toughest bans on single-use plastic bags.
Speaking during the World Environment Day, Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta reiterated on the ban of plastics in his country.
2 years ago, we banned the use, manufacture, and sale of environmentally harmful plastics, polythene bags, and packaging material. Building on this, today I am also announcing another ban on single-use plastics.
Environmentalists are concerned that U.S. pressure and bullying might erode these environment-friendly policies, and the country could become a dumping ground for plastics.
Will have dire consequences in terms of the environmental pollution because plastics have been touted as major polluters of our water bodies, the rivers, the oceans. And this is something that Kenyans have rejected quite significantly, and we have a very strong law that prohibits single-use plastics. So this deal is very progressive, and we want to reject it.
Last September, young people in Kenya were part of worldwide rallies to demand urgent action to halt catastrophic climate change. During a rally in Nairobi, they rejected the dumping of plastics in their country.
Now, to discuss this issue further, we contacted Emmanuel Urihiofe, Diaspora Positive Magazine news editor, African Voice newspaper in London. Thanks for your time, Urihiofe. What is your take on reports that oil and chemical companies in the U.S. plan to dump plastics in Africa through Kenya?
Well, we believe that there's a secret deal for the U.S. to download a lot of plastic in Kenya. The oil giants like Exxon, Shell, they are planning to do that. This is contrary to Kenya, which has been very, very consistent in banning the import of plastics.
Thanks for that, Emmanuel, and stay tuned for more.
According to the Overseas Development Institute, the world will fail to deliver the goals of the Paris Agreement without a massive reduction in plastic consumption. A recent report by the Institute urged governments to introduce regulations to rapidly phase out single-use plastics. The attempt by the U.S. to impose the sale of plastic products on Kenya comes as no surprise. In 2017, President Donald Trump announced his country's unilateral decision to withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement.
Thus, as of today, the United States will cease all implementation of the non-binding Paris Accord and the draconian financial and economic burdens the agreement imposes on our country.
Mr. Emmanuel, the Trump administration is intent on increasing its trade with African countries. But is this coming at a price for Africans?
It's trying to, increase its presence in Africa. And the reason, majorly, is to get these plastics from the U.S. You all know that there's a lot of environmental hazard for the U.S., really. If you look at plastics, they are all over the oceans. They constitute hazards. You see these whales and sharks, rivers are blocked. It causes a lot of the environmental hazards to the ocean beds. So the only way they can do this is to look for Africa, which is more or less, you see, it's a safe environment.
Thanks for that, Emmanuel.
The Secretary General of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, Dr. Mohisa Kitui, says the Kenya-US trade deal is loop-sided and will only benefit Washington. He advised Kenya to consider involving the rest of Africa in trade talks with the US.
On the retail market, because if you negotiate with the rest of Africa, you have more muscle in dealing with the Commerce Department in Washington than if you go as one country.
The African Union, through its Trade Commissioner, has criticized Kenya for going alone, despite active efforts to set up the African Continental Free Trade Area. Several trade lobby groups from Kenya, Nigeria, Uganda, Rwanda, and Tanzania have also voiced their opposition to the proposed trade deal. They noted that the impending deal will stifle the growth of local industries and lead to dumping of cheap U.S. imports in the region. What should Kenya do to avoid trade talks between the two countries?
What Kenya can do now is to stick to their guns. The idea of bending the rules, the laws in parliament have been passed, and yet you still find a situation where Uhuru want to bend the rules. I think that will not work. If that works, it have a lot of repercussions for Africa. For example, the OAU had the Bamako since 2018 banning the recycling of plastic all over Africa. So if Kenya should go on with the trade rules with the US, it's going to really affect Africa generally.
The United States is hell-bent on entering the African market through lopsided agreements. It remains to be seen if these bullying tactics will succeed in a continent that is witnessing increased assertiveness in the international arena.
Now it's that time in our program when we bring you news and events from all corners of Africa. Let's see what my colleague Sheila has in store for us.
Thank you, Henia. This week we have it all, from Maasai warriors to rats that detect landmines. To start us off, the Regional Expert Committee on Traditional Medicine for COVID-19 endorsed a protocol for Phase 3 clinical trials of herbal medicine for coronavirus. The committee was formed by the World Health Organization, the Africa Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and the African Union. The committee has also established a Data and Safety Monitoring Board for herbal medicine. Now on to educational news. Botswana's Ministry of Basic Education stated that the Swahili language will be introduced in schools in the southern African country. The expansion of the language targets future economic development in the African continent following the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Now, economic news from Ethiopia. Fast Consult has partnered with the Ethiopian Investment Commission for the digitization of the labor supply and matching database for factories within 7 industrial parks. The project is set to provide 600,000 jobs for young people, mostly women, and create 15,000 small to medium enterprises. Now, the Nigerian government has established a survival fund. The fund targets vulnerable micro and small enterprises, helping them meet their payroll obligations and safeguard jobs during this pandemic period. Educational and hospitality institutions were the first beneficiaries. Now, from warriors to elders, or in local terms, from a Moran to a Mzee, men from the Maasai community gathered in Kajiado, Kenya for a once-in-a-decade ceremony. Around 15,000 men were in attendance, feasting on roasted meat from their cattle, goats and sheep as they underwent their rite of passage. Now, on to an interesting piece. Magawa, a giant poached rat from Tanzania, received a gold medal by the British veterinary charity People's Dispensary for Sick Animals. The medal was awarded for the rat's work in detecting unexploded landmines in Cambodia. Let's take a look. That's all the news we had for you. Do visit our social media pages as shown on screen for more news updates and our episode highlights. Stay tuned, we have more in store for you.
African Continental Free Trade Area progress.
The African Union Treaty establishing the African Continental Free Trade Area was signed by African Union heads of state on the 21st of March 2018 in Kigali, Rwanda. The first commercial deal of this African Free Trade Area will be taking off on the 1st of January 2021.
The agreement is expected to progressively eliminate tariffs among AU members, creating the world's largest free trade area since the formation of the World Trade Organization.
Now, to actualize this historic treaty, the Permanent Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area was officially inaugurated last August in the Ghanaian capital, Accra.
The ceremony was attended by Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo and Musa Faki Mahamat, chairperson of the AU Commission, and Wamkele Mene, the first Secretary General of the AFCFTA.
Now, speaking during the ceremony, President Akufo-Addo urged African countries to ensure the treaty is implemented as the world is watching to see if it will be successful.
The AFCFTA Framework Agreement provides for a functionally autonomous, independent institution within the AU system. In upholding this and other provisions of the agreement, the Secretary General must work towards building a strong, efficient and effective secretariat with the capacity to implement the various trade rules in line with the text of the agreement to help build credibility and reduce trade policy uncertainty in the continent. The world is watching to see whether the secretariat will indeed provide the springboard for Africa's economic integration and rapid growth.
For an incisive analysis on the progress of the African Continental Free Trade Area, we have contacted Dennis Kothe, presiding officer of the African Union Economic, Social and Cultural Council. He is also Director General, Institute for Development and Leadership in Africa. Thanks a lot, Mr. Kothe, and it's great having you on our show today. Our first question, what is the progress so far since the establishment of the African Continental Free Trade Area?
The agreement already has been signed and endorsed. Ratification has been made by quite a number of countries, about 30 of them. And we have already also launched the secretariat in Ghana. And we are looking forward to starting the implementations in January 2021. So the threshold has been made, and it's ready to start, except a few countries which are yet to ratify.
Thanks for that, Mr. Kothe. You mentioned there about the ratification of the agreement. During his speech at the ceremony to inaugurate the permanent secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area, Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo urged the remaining countries to ratify the treaty. Let's take a listen.
An effective implementation of the AFCFTA will dispel the notion that the AU is not capable of executing its own decisions. Africa's new sense of urgency and aspiration of true self-reliance will be amply demonstrated by today's ceremony. In this regard, I appeal to all member states who are yet to ratify the AFCFTA agreement to take advantage of the postponement of the date for start of trading and to do so by December 2020.
Mr. Kothe, the Ghanaian president is clearly concerned due to the fact that over 20 countries are yet to ratify the African Continental Free Trade Area. What are the reasons for the delay?
One is that every country, they have their own legislation on how to advance the process. So these are some of the issues that the countries are dealing with. But we believe that between now and January, they'll be able to accomplish that. They have to use parliament, or they have to use various, legislative bodies and procedures in various member countries. And I think they're also agreeing on the exchange rate that the tariffs that they think should be adopted. So I would say that it's just a question of procedure, but basically nearly all the African countries have ratified. They have supported the STFA. And they're looking forward to its implementation when we start next year in January. So it's just a question of procedure, according to each regulations and rules in different, member states. But basically, the process is done.
Thanks a lot for that, Mr. Dennis.
Speaking during the transfer of the Secretariat building from the Ghanaian government to the African Union, Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area, Secretariat Wamakele Mene, said Africa remained trapped in a colonial economic model with numerous challenges. He elaborated on his plan of action.
We have to take action now. We have to take action to dismantle the colonial economic model that we inherited. The AFCFTA is therefore a critical response to Africa's economic development challenges. It has the potential to enable Africa to significantly boost intra-Africa trade, to improve economies of scale through an integrated market.
The first commercial deal of the African Continental Free Trade Area is expected to take off on January 1st, 2021. Are African countries ready for this major milestone?
Yeah, African governments and states are quite ready because, as I mentioned earlier on, the threshold has been met, the secretariat has been established, the administrator has also been established and confirmed. So there's nothing that stops, the implementation of various activities next year. And as you can see, ratification, only a few countries that are left, which are working on the process. So I strongly believe that if there's no any other interference, then SCTFA will be able to start its activities and implementations as we start the year in January as per plan. But of course, as again I've mentioned that COVID-19 is quite a bit of a challenge to us, and we only hope that by then, and it is really a big challenge to the continental body, African Union.
Intra-African trade is currently only 16% to 70% in Europe. Additionally, African nations currently tend to trade more with Europe and Asia than with neighboring markets. So the African Free Trade Agreement is expected to play an important role in boosting intra-regional trade and reduce dependence on aid.
This platform will allow us to harmonize our different national policies to regularize and harmonize so that we can trade amongst ourselves on the continent. We have a lot of challenges on food security. This will allow us to really, diversify our economy and really provide food in some affected countries by the climate change. For instance, we have some countries that are really highly affected by drought and all the hazard of the climate change.
How is the African continent expected to benefit from this free trade area once it is fully operational?
Yeah, so the Africa Free Trade Area is a very good initiative for us as a continent. And this is something that will make Africa depend, on itself. For a long time, many African countries depend on foreign aid. And I think this initiative is going to change the position, the focus in Africa in terms of economic development. It will open business opportunities, it will open employment opportunities, and it will give Africa opportunity to benefit from its own resources. As you know, each African country, member state, has a lot of potential. And if we open intertrade within ourselves as Africa, this is going to provide us with a very good opportunity for economic growth.
Thanks for staying with us. In this segment, it's all about you. We are going to look at your views across our social media platforms. Now, on the topic of Mali after the coup, we had Kayongo Nicolas stating, Africans' issues with African solutions. ECOWAS has done great to help handle and find solutions for the coup in Mali. Hopefully, the EAC is picking a leaf. We also had Baidi stating, did the world just collectively decide that the coup d'etat in Mali wasn't important? It does look like it. We also had at Ahmad Toubo stating, a hard reminder that in the 21st century, with the existence and presence of the famed United Nations, Al-Sisi of Egypt became president via a coup, Mali military created a junta government with a coup, and Sudan military adopted a junta via a soft coup. It's becoming Africa's new normal. Now, on the topic of the Namibia genocide carried out by Germany, we had Sunset Sky stating, 10 million seems like a lot until you remember these are the countries and this was a genocide. Personal injury lawsuits can get higher compensation than this. Not being willing to call it reparations also looks like some pointless pride on Germans' part. Now, Tony Cook stated, what should they offer? The country, the women, the death of all Germans? Namibia should accept the offer. Cyber Raja stated, their reparations for the Holocaust should be a guide, like for like. Otherwise, the message is clear. Black lives are not worth anywhere near white ones. We also had Ruben C. stating, Germany gives Namibia foreign aid on a large scale, but this is no substitute for reparations, not only because it does not represent justice, but because it denies responsibility and effectively becomes a matter of assistance and charity. Now, thanks for the comments and interaction. We appreciate the response. Follow us and keep it Africa Today in all platforms.
And on the positive note of immense progress towards the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, we come to the end of this week's edition of Africa Today.
In today's edition, we also focused on U.S. attempts to impose plastic products on Kenya, a move that has faced stiff opposition from environmental activists.
It's been great having you.
Don't forget to send us your views and comments on what you saw in today's program and what you would like to see in future programs.
And on behalf of the entire Africa Today team, I would like to thank you all for your time. Take care and goodbye.